But it was also something that kind of bothered me about the film, right? Was that when I saw you later that day after mass, and like we were talking about the movie a bit, and you mentioned some of these like complicating historical facts about Gandhi and inaccuracies in the film, I think the first thing I said to you is, oh, well, that's a relief, and that might seem like a odd thing to say, but I was genuinely relieved to find out that this man was not in fact Jesus, right? and that the film kind of suspiciously, leads you to believe that, suspiciously suggests that this man is more Jesus than Jesus.
The film stresses, basically, for the most part, it stresses everything that Westerners would find appealing about Gandhi and leaves everything that they would find unappealing out, more or less.
Yeah.
Westerners might not find hunger strikes appealing to do them, but they find it appealing. They find it nice to think about someone else doing it.
Yeah.
Westerners, maybe they're not so crazy about the part where he and his wife reenact their wedding vows, and she says he's her sovereign lord, which I thought was awesome.
That was awesome.
But it's like a different culture. Let's praise Gandhi a little bit. I mean, Gandhi was he was educated in England. He was very intrigued by Christianity, and especially the New Testament. He ultimately refused to accept that Jesus was sort of personally the way of salvation. Much in the way that like a Jordan Peterson hasn't been able to accept that.
Right.
But I wanted to read a comment that he made in the Sistine Chapel when he saw a painting of the crucified Christ. What would not I have given to be able to bow my head before the living image of Christ crucified? I saw there at once that nations like individuals could only be made through the agony of the cross and in no other way. Joy comes not out of infliction of pain on others, but out of pain voluntarily borne by oneself.
Wow.
So, that's a remarkable statement for anybody to be able to say, even if it is too much of an ideal.
It sounds just like something Peterson would say.
Yeah. Now, we could talk about this film. Really emphasizes his interest in Christianity, his being inspired by the Sermon on the Mount, and his sort of syncretistic attitude in general.
Yes, right.
Now, Gandhi was not a syncretist, but on the level of philosophy, on the level of moral ideals, Gandhi was a Hindu. He did not practice rituals of other religions, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And he was a Hindu to his core, really. But this aspect, which is very appealing to the modern West as well, is emphasized. Now, I've heard it said that Hindus and Muslims are two of the hardest people to convert to Christianity. Muslims because of their strictness and their kind of like fanaticism and their like intensity of like, which, for someone who's right is correct.
Sure.
And Hindus because they're so open. Hinduism is not a coherent religious system. It's a collection of a bajillion cults and then a bunch of different schools of philosophy laid on top of those. So, when you get Westerners saying, well, I just take whatever, I can from different religions, they might not be practicing like rites of any one religion. Gandhi was a Hindu. That's like fundamental to Hinduism. Like, And some people who have even grown up in Indian culture have said that like self-contradiction is like pretty core to being like
I have a friend who's Indian. He was born in the United States, but his parents came over from India, and he's described this to me about how there were these efforts to evangelize and convert the Hindu people by the British colonists, and that in a lot of instances, what may have on the surface looked like success actually wasn't at all, because it was like, yeah, sure, we'll worship like your Jesus and Mary or whatever. But he mentioned to me that his father, who's Hindu, has framed pictures of Jesus and Mary in their home.
Yeah, Gandhi had a picture of Jesus.
Grew up with that
as well.
Yeah.
So there's like an openness that like kind of makes it difficult to commit and to renounce.
Right.
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 So Gandhi had the enlightened condescension towards Christianity, of an enlightened man, enlightened, open-minded man.
An enlightened
He didn't want to sort
member of the Roman Curia.
He wasn't trying to like sort of like overtly discourage Christian missionaries and stuff, but he definitely was very much against the idea that converting to Christianity as an Indian meant that you would have to dress like a Westerner and adopt Western customs and everything. And in that, obviously, he's correct. He says, he has a specific line. He said, conversion must not mean denationalization. He says, conversion should mean a definite giving up of the evil of the old, adoption of all the good of the new, and a scrupulous avoidance of everything evil in the new. Conversion, therefore, should mean a life of greater dedication to one's country, greater surrender to God, greater self-purification. So that's all true in itself, but, Gandhi definitely, like, plays a role in this attitude you find today among many Indians that is, like, essentially similar in a way to, what Malcolm X might have said, which is that it's like the white man's religion.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Gandhi was more open to it as like a moral system, as a ideal of life, but he felt that, it could not make this claim, this like exclusive claim.
Yeah.
So that part of his view is emphasized in the movie, but his Hindu-ness is very de-emphasized.
Yes.
We basically see him doing nothing, virtually nothing
Right.
specifically Hindu,
Right.
other than like we see him doing specifically Indian things.
Right.
We see the reenactment of his marriage ceremony. We never see him worshiping. We never see him,
praying. Like we see the aftermath of prayer. Like,
Yeah.
oh, are you guys done praying?
It's also been pointed out that we hardly ever see him thinking through difficult issues. We don't see much internal conflict in him at all. We see
Right.
him only after he's had the
One
epiphany.
wonders how he got to be so wise. He just like in every situation in this film has like the
Right.
wise path charted.
Right.
Um,
He's just slightly clueless at the beginning in the train sequence when he gets kicked off the train in South Africa. He's like doesn't seem to like know that racism exists. But yeah, so all of that is there, and so you can see how it is emphasized. The film is bringing across things that are part of Hinduism, that are part of the East. But as I said before, or as you said, it's also kind of isolating them and idealizing them from a Western perspective and leaving out the actual like the rites, the cult,
Sure.
Yeah. And so,
I mean, anytime God is spoken of in this film, it is
spoken of as though it's just God. It's the same God.
Right.
Unlike what Richard Grenier says, Rama is not the same
Right.
as God.
Right.
Basically you don't hear anything about the different Hindu deities or anything like that.
anything like